The camera start with green.
All right, go ahead.
The camera in front of you was green. And it turns red and red.
Okay. Okay.
15 seconds. Seconds, mics are open.
Okay. All right, so welcome back, everybody, to another week, another episode of my show. I'm Jordan, and this is Taking a Different Perspective, where I talk, discuss, review, and analyze all things film and media. So the summer movie blockbuster calendar, I would have to say, officially started this year back in April with the release of Avengers: Infinity War. And so, you know, you can tell that we've been in the summer movie blockbuster season for about a month and some change now. Even though from April until now, a handful of big movies have already come out, these next 2 months are when things are really going to be kicking into high gear. So with the rest of June and into July is when the season, I believe, is really going to hit its peak. And that's because there's a new movie that's coming out just about every week. And so seeing as though the summer is so stacked, a lot of my upcoming episodes are going to be straight movie reviews. And so today's episode is basically the commencement of all of that. Within this past week, I was able to see Ocean's 8 and also Hereditary. I know that may be a shocker to some of you, but yes, I saw Hereditary as well. And so, yeah, I'm going to be reviewing those movies. And then later on in the episode, I'm also going to be conducting another interview. Today's interview is going to be with a filmmaker from Philly whose name is Darien Griffin. I had actually reached out to him first because I had a question about a camera. Like, I saw that he was a filmmaker, but he told me that he was also planning to reach out to me so that I could review and critique his film. And so I said that I would do it, but I told him that, you know, I try to be as objective as I can with these reviews. And he said, that's exactly what I want. So I said, I got you. And I watched it and it was really good. So I was like, I need for you to, to be on my show. So yeah, make sure you all stay tuned in for that a little later on. But before we get into that interview, like I said, I got some reviews. So first I wanted to start out with Ocean's 8. Now, Ocean's 8 is a movie that has been talked about for some time now and for good reason. I mean, you know, we have 8 of some of the most greatest, beautiful, and talented women entertainers that are alive today. Now, there is one specific actor that's in this movie that you probably haven't really heard of before, and that's no shade to her, but I mean, yeah. Now, besides the cast, another big reason as to why, you know, this movie was talked about for a really long time was because it was apparently, technically, it's a continuation. But I also think of it as a remake of the Ocean's franchise, which has been going on for some years now, which dates back to 1960 and then also to the 2000s. So yeah, this Ocean's 8 movie was pretty hyped. And I would have to say that from the very beginning, I was really excited to see this movie. And the biggest reason as to why that was because of the cast. I mean, we have Sandra Bullock, we have Kate Blanchett, Anne Hathaway, Mindy Kaling, Rihanna, Sarah Paulson, Helena Bonham Carter, and Awkwafina. And then, I mean, besides that, there are also a lot of other big name people that are in or that make an appearance in this movie. And that's because the movie itself revolves around the Met Gala. And as we know, that's known to be, you know, the party of the year because of all the big names that attend and because of the fashion. Now, this movie revolves around 8 criminals that come together to steal a really expensive necklace at the Met Gala. And I have to say that I really enjoyed this movie. You know, I was looking forward to it, and I would have to say that it met the expectations that I had for it. In terms of just my overall movie-going experience, it was a really positive one. I mean, you know, I wasn't bored. My mind wasn't constantly wandering as I was sitting in the theater watching it. I wasn't constantly checking my phone. I thought that the movie was pretty funny, not like ha-ha funny, but it was funny. I also loved seeing everyone on screen. You know, the chemistry between everyone, both on and off of the screen, was really apparent. I mean, you know, just from the few clips from, you know, the various press junkets that everyone had been doing for the past couple of weeks, you know, I could tell that, you know, that everyone like just genuinely loved loved working with one another, and that, you know, that they created a genuine bond while on the set. Now, besides that, I also loved that the filmmakers tried to ensure that everyone interacted with one another in the movie, even if some of the scenes may have been a bit small. Yeah, I just love that the filmmakers were really trying to showcase that these women do have a relationship with one another. You know, they very well could have made it so that, a few set of characters only interacted with one another, whereas, the other set of characters only interacted with one another, but they really tried to mix things up, and I really like that. I love that we understood the characters and their motivations. You know, when we're introduced to the characters, it didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like a Suicide Squad kind of rush. I also loved all of the finesse that was a part of this movie. I loved the costumes, Kate Blanchett in this movie in particular, just all of her wardrobe it was amazing. And then I just love the overall lightheartedness of the movie. You know, it really does feel like the quintessential summer movie. And so, yeah, I walked out of the theater pretty pleased, I would have to say. Now, with that being said, this definitely isn't the best movie that I've ever seen. I mean, you know, looking at it in the grander scheme of things, it is still a pretty average movie. But I mean, besides that, there was also one other thing that I found out about this movie after watching it that kind of has me looking at it a bit differently. And that is the fact that apparently this movie is really similar to the Ocean's 11 movie that came out back in 2001 starring George Clooney and all of those people. Now, I haven't seen the other Ocean's movies, but I do know but I do remember the one starring George Clooney in them. Like, I remember hearing a lot about them growing up, and so I knew that those are movies that I wanted to see and that I had planned on seeing at some point, but I just haven't seen them yet. Like, that point just hasn't happened. And so when I found out that this movie was basically the same movie as the first in the Ocean's trilogy, but except with an all-female cast, and instead of money being the object of their affection, it's a necklace, I felt a bit bamboozled. You know, here I was sitting in the theater and then walking out of the theater thinking to myself, wow, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, I would definitely see it again. I would see it in theaters. I know that whenever it comes on, you know, whatever movie channel that it comes on when it premieres on cable, that I'm going to sit and watch it. But it's not anything new. Like, it's basically the same. It's basically the same as the first movie in the trilogy, like beat for beat, and that kind of sucks. And I do think that does kind of get into a larger problem when it comes to the entertainment industry and their way of creating diversity. You know, I have started to notice this pattern where the industry thinks that, you know, when it comes to these remakes, reboots, and sequels and things like that, that as long as, you know, the main character or the cast of characters isn't a white male, that, you know, that's enough. And that, you know, when it comes to actually making the story, you know, more original, when it comes to making the story something that's able to stand on its own, and not to say that Ocean's 8 doesn't stand on its own, but, you know, when you compare it to the other ones, you can see that they're basically the same. You know, it's almost like the industry is thinking, well, you know, the visual representation is enough. And, you know, this isn't to devalue the importance of visual representation, because it is still very important, but at the same time, it does feel like a really superficial way of dealing with their diversity problem, and I do think that we deserve better. So if you have seen the Ocean's 11 movie that came out back in 2001, and you do decide to see this new Ocean's 8 movie, do not be surprised if it feels like, you know, that you've seen it before, because apparently you have. But like I said, because my overall experience with this movie was a pretty positive one, I don't think that you'll be too upset that you did decide to see this movie if you do, you know, decide to see it in theaters. So yeah, I would recommend that you see Ocean's 8, but just keep in mind that, you know, if you've seen the other Ocean's movies, that you've probably seen it before. You know, you're not really getting anything new. Now, going ahead and moving on to Hereditary. Now, I honestly don't have much to say about this movie, mainly because I honestly didn't have the best experience with this movie, and also partially because of timing with today's episode, so it did kind of work out. Now, Hereditary stars Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Millie Shapiro, and Gabriel Byrne, and it follows the story of a family after the mother/grandmother dies. Now, that's pretty much all I can really tell you about the movie, because I do feel like if I were to say more, that it would, you know, kind of spoil the movie, and also because, like I said, I honestly didn't have the best experience with this movie, so I really couldn't tell you all of what this movie is about. Now, like I said, because I didn't really have the best experience with this movie, you're probably thinking that maybe, you know, it was because, you know, you want to go see a scary movie and you don't like scary movies, that was the reason. And that was not the reason whatsoever. In fact, I did not find this movie to be scary at all. I mean, like I said, y'all know how I am with scary movies. But, you know, I was kind of feeling myself on this particular day when I decided to see it. You know, I've been kind of, you know, getting out of my shell when it comes to seeing these quote unquote scary movies in theaters. And so I've seen a couple of them, and, you know, I've come out alive. So I was like, okay, let me go see Hereditary. So I knew what I was getting myself into. But like I said, it wasn't scary. I actually found it to be more humorous than scary. You know, there are very few jump scares in this movie. Now, I know that when it comes to, when it comes to scary movies in general, that they do use jump scares as more of a lazy kind of scare tactic. And so I'm not necessarily saying that you know, the lack of jump scares is a flaw for this particular movie, but this is something to more so, you know, think about as you're going into it, so that you don't really expect to be scared in that way. This movie is more of a psychological thriller with disturbing visuals that are meant to stay with you for days on end. And while I can see that, you know, when I went into this movie, I was expecting to be really scared because it was marketed as being like one of the scariest movies to ever come out, and then it was also just really hyped. And I don't know, like I didn't get that. Like I was definitely expecting more, and I do think that this kind of speaks more so to the problem of the marketing of the film. So I'm not necessarily going to blame this entirely on the movie. You know, I do think that when it comes to these movies that you know, that people are disappointed by, or that don't necessarily have the best score or anything like that, that it's more so due to the marketing of the film. And so I do think that the marketing is something, well, just marketing of films period is something that the industry really needs to work on better. You know, I do think that maybe had Hereditary been marketed more so as a drama, that maybe, you know, I would have had a better experience with the movie. Now, besides that, I also found the movie to be a bit slow. There was a good chunk of the beginning where I was just waiting for something to happen, and then you know, something does happen, but then it's like the movie just drops right back down to, you know, being really boring, I guess I could say. And then, I mean, after that, there were moments where it does pick up, but overall, it was just really slow. You know, this is one of those movies that has that kind of art house indie feel to it, so you definitely have to pay attention. But because I felt like the movie didn't do the best job in getting and then keeping my attention, my overall investment and interest in the movie just wasn't there. You know, I did find myself thinking about other things, and I did also find myself nodding off a couple of times. And so yeah, I know that what it is that I'm saying about this movie definitely go against the grain, because with essentially every review that I've seen of the movie, everyone is going up for this movie. They talked about how it left them speechless. They don't know how to feel about it. It's something that's going to stay with them for however many, you know, days, weeks, or years on end. And I don't know, like it just had me thinking, like, maybe I just wasn't in the right kind of headspace, or like, I don't know, mentally or emotionally that day. But I mean, I went into the movie in a fairly good mood. So I don't know. I really don't know like what could have caused my experience to not be as great as it could have been. And so, yeah, because my experience wasn't that great, it does kind of suck, because I do feel like I wasn't able to give the movie the proper viewing that it deserves. And so because of that, I do want to give this movie a second chance, but not just because of the investment part, but also because it is pretty ambiguous. You know, I can tell that there is a lot more to it that I feel like after seeing it multiple times, you know, will help to make the movie make a lot more sense, because that was another thing. I was just really lost when it came to this movie. And then also, even though I don't you know, see this, even though I don't think that this is one of the best movies that I've ever seen, you know, I can see why people would go up for this movie. You know, it's not your run-of-the-mill scary movie. I can tell that there was, you know, thought and care that was put into it. The visuals were nice. The performances were good. But yeah, off first viewing, I'm not the biggest fan of this Hereditary movie. So I guess if anything, I would say go into this movie not really expecting for it to be really scary. And I think that, you know, if you were to do that, that you would come out of it a lot more pleased in the kind of, I guess, disturbed sense, because it is supposed to still disturb you. So yeah, I would say see Hereditary on your own discretion, but at the very least, just keep what it is that I'm saying in your mind when you go into it. And I do think that you will have a much better experience than I had with it. And so yeah, that will go ahead and end my reviews for today. So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm going to be doing another interview, and this interview will be with a filmmaker whose name is Darien Griffin, so that, you know, he can talk a little bit about his short film Numb, and also so that, you know, I can just pick his brain a little bit on some other things. So I'm going to go ahead and call him really quick. Give me a second. Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, Darien.
Hey, what's up?
How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, I mean, I already told you this already when we talked on the phone, but I again just want to thank you, for thinking enough of me to, ask me to review and critique your film. Darien is actually the first filmmaker that's reached out to me to, so that they could hear my thoughts on their movie. And then I also want to thank you for being a part of this interview today.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So going ahead and getting right into these questions. So you are a writer / director / actor / sometimes editor. How did you get started doing all of that? Like, what made you turn to filmmaking?
Well, just pretty much, wanting to be in film. That's what led to acting, and I guess just working on a few projects and kind of getting inspired to do my own stories led to writing the film, and then I felt like it was who else better to tell my story or direct my story other than me, and that's how directing came about. Editing is just more so I do it off of inspiration. I can't really sit around and just like edit a whole film. That's a whole different game, and they got that. So.
Okay, and so out of those 3 / 3.5 titles that you hold, what would you say that you enjoy doing the most and why?
I'll say acting for real. That's like, it's a thrill sometimes. I know every time before I go to set, I still get like butterflies because it's like, I don't know, it's just a whole different experience, and then I kind of like, I love it for real. But definitely, a rush. But it shows, the work that you put in, and then when you look back, comparing your work from, I guess like last month compared to like the last 5 years, you can see the growth. I like that part a lot.
Okay. And so you currently live in Philly, but at one point you did live in PG. Now, I don't know how incredibly involved in the DMV art scene that that you were, or if you were even involved in it to begin with. But looking at the art scene where you currently reside, what is one thing that you would say that you love about Philly's art scene, and then one thing that you hate or dislike about it?
It's kind of like sweet and sour a little bit. It's like there's so many like talented people I know in the Philadelphia area, or I'm like just finding out about in the Philadelphia area, but they don't get like the proper. I don't know, like I'll happen to come across their page and they do like amazing like artwork and they got like 300 followers, and I'll be like, how is this person, not like trending or, thousands of followers of their art? And it's just crazy. Musicians, other, actors and stuff like that. It's a lot of people out here that's talented, but it's just nobody wants to, I guess, promote each other for that they want to compete. We're not competing at this level, especially if I'm not an artist, if I'm not I don't draw or paint. Like, why would I not promote you? Why would I not have you come to one of my events or something like that? So.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that when it comes to the DMV as well. Like, there are a lot of talented people here, but yeah, a lot of people seem to think that we don't really hype each other up or prop each other up as much as we should. So yeah, that's
right.
Yeah. That's interesting. But so Numb is your second short film that you've done, and like I said, it was a film that you asked if I could review. Now, could you please go ahead and tell the people what it is that this movie is about in your own words?
Numb, in a nutshell, is pretty much the cycle of bad relationships from the male perspective. It just gives a different perspective. I haven't really seen a lot of breakup drama movies from the male perspective. So I just thought, I went through it. Why not, write it? So that's what Numb is about.
Okay, and so one of the big themes of this project is millennial relationships in the modern age. And so, a lot of people talk about how us millennials are non-committal and how, we're afraid of love, and that, to also quote Aubrey Graham, that, that we live in a generation of not being in love and not being together, but we sure make it feel like we're together. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on relationships today?
I don't know. I just feel like our generation is just, especially with social media, we see other people, whether it be male or female, or we see other relationships, we either compare ourselves or we just see what we want and not really truly, I guess, cherish what we have. So it's kind of like, all right, I might get the girl I've been wanting for like a year or a few months, and then, all right, I see something else on Instagram and it's like, I don't really, want the person I have, knowing that she may be, better for you or whatever, but it's just, we just don't want to, like, I guess, go through the tough times or just, I'm not trying to figure each other out. If it doesn't work, after, I guess, a month or so, it's like, all right, well, I'll get it back.
I get it. So how does the weekend fit into all of that and the meaning behind the title of the movie?
Well, that's when I was like twisted heavily to the weekend when I was going through like this bad breakup, and I don't know, it's just his music and his lyrics kind of just had like I guess a negative effect, but the title itself, Numb, just plays on with how that character was feeling during that time. So, how the main character was feeling during that time. It's just kind of like numb to the other person's emotions.
Okay. And so art itself is pretty subjective. It's up for interpretation, but what is something or some things that you hope that people will take away from this project?
Well, as far as just looking at it, I just want people to, I guess, feel like this wasn't going to be like home movie quality. This was going to be like, I wasn't like, for my first film, like my directorial debut, I wasn't going to try to put out just, a camera and have actors. I wanted to actually have a DP and, proper lighting and all that. So I hope that people enjoy the aesthetic of it as well as far as the story, or, it just being from a different perspective.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Guys, I went into this movie kind of expecting for the quality to not be as great as it was, but yeah, Darien really shut me up within those first few seconds, and I was like, wow, this is visually speaking, the movie is just, it really does look like a cinematic, something that you would see in the movie. So yeah, that was really good. And so I know that you have submitted this movie, this short film, into festivals. So how has that whole process been like so far?
The festival is just kind of like a waiting game, but we have gotten that, we have gotten into 2 festivals. The Kansas City Film Festival is like a First Friday thing. That's in August, and it was shown in Cannes under like a Creative Minds group, not in the actual like Cannes Film Fest, but it was shown there during that time. So if people just happen to stop by wherever the Creative Minds group was, then my film was there. So
okay, and so
I guess that's overseas.
Okay, and so going ahead and getting a bit more broader, seeing as though you are a young Black filmmaker, when it comes to the topic of Black film, what are your thoughts on its current state, and where do you hope to see it go in the future?
I think it's really at a good standpoint right now as far as moving forward, because I haven't seen many, I guess, like hood classics anymore. Not saying that those are a bad thing, but just to get us out the box and put us into like sci-fi movies and films that are based on the present or the future time, is just kind of like, all right, well, now we can start being more, I don't know, just keep exploring,
thinking ahead more.
It's been like scary movies, like with Jordan, Jordan Peele and what he did. So.
Okay, and so again, seeing as though you are a young Black filmmaker, when it comes to your own career and aspirations, where do you hope to see yourself go in the future?
Just to keep progressing for real. Of course, to be considered with like other, Oscar nominated actors, of course, but I would just keep making the small steps. I would damn sure love to get on like Netflix and get on like regular HBO or Showtime or the big screen, but it's definitely just, taking the little steps to get there and enjoying pretty much every moment of it for real. So.
Okay, and so my last question for you today is probably going to be the hardest question that you've ever been asked in your entire life. What is your favorite and or one of your favorite movies, and why?
I I would have to say Primal Fear. I don't know why that's like on the top of my head right now. I can't really pinpoint, but Primal Fear is like a great movie. Definitely underrated.
Who's in that? Like I've heard it, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, I like Edward Norton and his performance was just like he just looked past the fact that there wasn't like a lot of special effects and all that. It was in that era. I think it was like 90s or late 80s.
Okay.
I think, but it's just such a great movie as far as story wise, and you're just the whole time like on the edge of your seat. I really love thrillers.
Okay. So Primal Fear, I'm gonna have to check that out. Like I know that I've seen it like on the movie channels at some point, but I never thought to watch it. But okay, that I'll definitely put that on my list. Now, Darien, is the opportunity for you to go ahead and plug yourself, this short film, other projects that you're working on, and where it is that people can keep up with you if they wanted to keep up with you or get into contact with you.
Okay, well, on I guess Twitter and Instagram, my handle is dgriffii. And yeah, we're pretty much going to have another premiere for another short film that we've been working on, and the trailer's on my page as far as Instagram, and it's pinned on my Twitter as well. So yeah.
All right, well, Darien, thank you again for being a part of this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, and so with that will go ahead and end today's episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. If you like what you saw and or heard today, well, I've got some news for you because I do this show every week, same time, same day, 12:30 to 1, every Tuesday. In terms of next week's episode, it is going to be another review episode. There's a big anticipated movie that is coming out this week, and then also another movie that I'm sure that you've heard of. You may not really expect for me to be talking about it, but I want to talk about it. And also next week, I'm going to have another special guest. Well, that has actually been on the show before. So, yeah, they're going to be coming back and, helping me to review these movies. Now, in terms of today's episode, if you had any comments, questions, or concerns about anything that was talked about today, or just anything in general, let me know. Hit me up. You can find me on Facebook at Jordan CHISLEY or on Twitter at JORDI Reviews. And yeah, we can get some conversations going. But yeah, with that being said, that will go ahead and end today's episode, and I will see you all next week. All right, bye-bye.